Morning to everybody. We appreciate your time and very excited about the information and the live event we have. We're very grateful to Sridhar Mullapati to join us today, and also very appreciative of our EUC practice leads Shane Kleinert and Scott Osborne, who will kind of be hosting and moderating and leading up some Q&A and some updates and some insights there. So real quick, I'm going to share here's a little bit of the lineup, what we're planning to cover here in the up to an hour that we have today. Just a real quick introductions and background on our team at Choice Solutions. We're going to then get Sridhar introduced and go through some of the announcements and updates and the opportunity to visit and hear from Sridhar directly, which we're very excited about. And then we'll have some insights from our EUC practice leads just on some of these forthcoming things and opportunities for customers. Also kind of touch on some account coverage updates that we'll share later as well, depending on the organization and size of organization you might be with. And then again, we'll finish out with some Q&A. So about us, but I'd really love to get you guys introduced to and transition over to our hosts for today, Scott Osborne and Shane Kleinert, our EUC practice leads. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dana. Yeah, appreciate it, man. We're excited to be on this today and help. We swore we wouldn't say unpack or peel back the onion or whatever. Shane's going to have a couple other phrases, but I appreciate everybody joining. So Scott Osborne, I co-lead with Shane on the EUC practice for us here at Choice Solutions. I hail from Omaha up here in the North Central, senior solutions architect, and some of the various badges down there. Those that know me know I'm heavily involved on the community side, as well as basically doing my thing here at Choice. So thanks for joining.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Oz. Thanks, Dana. So Shane Kleinert, I'm the senior solutions architect here at Choice, co-lead the Southeast region, and co-lead the EUC practice with Scott Osborne. Some of the badges down there, probably the one I'm most proud about is the NFL badge there. For those of you who know me, know I've never been into sports my entire life, and just got in last year into the NFL. And you can see the Dolphins logo back there. You almost did it. You almost got there, like this much. But yeah, so it's super excited to be here today, and we're really honored and humbled that Sri was able to join us. We have a long time partnership, so excited to help kind of demystify. It's another one there. A lot of the announcements that have been out there and help bring some clarity. So yeah, let's get rocking.
Yeah, before we touch on and we're going to introduce the main man of the event. We did want to mention some of our other webinars that we do have out there. So we do these throughout the year. And, if you are interested, hit up our website and, you'll be able to see some of those prior ones that we've done throughout the year. But
yep, you can scan the QR code list, just not now. So you stay paying attention and zeroed in, laser focused.
100%.
Awesome. So yeah, and be sure to subscribe as well. All right. So without further ado, get the Rocky music going. Oz, cue that up.
I don't have any. I'm sorry.
Come on. So yes, like I said, super excited to have Sridhar Mullapati here. I mean, we go way back. I mean, I was trying to do the math on it. It's over 10 years, might be close to 15. Sridhar, that we personally known each other. I know you've known Oz and the Choice team as well over the years. So we couldn't be more excited that you're here, leading the ship for Citrix and they're kind of leading Citrix through some incredible transitions through the year. And we go way back to partner technical council days when you're on kind of the product management side, and you've always been just super passionate about the technology, as well as very customer focused, customer centric, and just always willing to do the right thing, which matches our culture. And we're just super excited to have you on today to help again bring some clarity to some of the announcements, as well as us kind of unpacking some of the value together kind of as a group. So, and with that also, what's exciting for us is the leadership that's kind of at the top at Citrix today is just an enormous amount of tenure at Citrix. I think it was added up, it was over 100+ years. So just super excited and yeah, just want to introduce you. So thank you and go ahead and take it away. Give us kind of the vision of Citrix and what Citrix has been up to since going private.
Hey, thanks, Shane, Scott, Dana, and the Choice Solutions team for having me here. Super excited. As Shane said, I've been with Citrix for a long time, 22+ years. Pretty much, grew within the organization, putting a lot of roles around product, technology and general management. I'll give a little bit of a background on some of the changes that happened last year, as well as some of the transformation we're doing, and why I personally am super excited for the next phase of Citrix, right? So last year was a transformational year for us, as you've probably seen. We went private, merged, and kind of formed the new cloud software group. As part of that, we have the business unit structure. So I'm the general manager for Citrix, which I would say is the flagship business unit for the cloud software group. Really excited, right? I think, a big part of our strategy really is investing in technology, support, and providing a great customer experience. I think that should be, I would say, music to, a lot of our customers and partners, because at the end of the day, we are a technology company, and we can, be relevant by investing in technology and providing best of breed, customer experience and customer support. So I'll kind of unpack some of those things as we go along, as well as the strategy going forward. I think, we've been talking to a lot of our customers and partners over the 6 months, taking some of the feedback, taking feedback even through the webinar and others, and really shaping our strategy, which, aligns, I would say, with a lot of our customers and partners. The first one I want to talk about, the Citrix commitment in the new structure and the strategy, right? First, customer-focused innovation, right? I think, this strategy, internally we call it back to basics, to be honest. And I think, if you've looked over the past, 20 years, I would say Citrix has done a decent job listening to customers and partners. But just like any other company, I think we go through different phases, and probably over the past few years, sometimes took the eye off the ball on where the customer wants to be, where they want to go, and where we need to be. So, we are doubling down on customer-focused innovation, right? Listening to customers, listening to partners, investing in the core products and markets where we've been successful, and growing with our customers. So this is not about chasing, new markets we don't play, or anything at the expense of the markets and the products we play. Let's go back to our basics. Let's invest a lot in the markets and the products we already play, and keep expanding use cases and provide more value customers, right? So that's first. So huge investment in technology. If I compare myself, where we are investing, how much we're investing in R&D last year versus this year, big improvement, right? And that continues to grow. Second, best-in-class support, right? That for me is basics, right? You can provide a great customer experience, customer support, no matter what size of the organization you are. I think it's not a great strategy. So we're investing in two things. First, we've started increasing our investment in frontline support, right? I think we've seen a lot of challenges over the past year, especially with some attrition and other changes happening, that I think the support experience, we're putting a lot. So you should see better experience in frontline support. We've started seeing some of that over the past few months, and hopefully, as the time progresses, we want to be best in class, right? And we measure NPS, customer satisfaction, and no matter what the customer size, we want to provide the best in class support. So that's one. The second change we're making is, as part of the new organizational structure, we are actually moving all the escalation engineering and advanced escalation teams into the BU. Why does that matter? It matters because when a customer is escalating and we know something has to be fixed and changed, we want that to be the escalation engineering sitting next to engineering and really resolving the issue fast. So you're not sitting it on days, but you actually resolve those things, especially critical issues. So these two changes we believe are big, and hopefully you'll see that reflected in the support experience you're getting, through customers and partners. Third, hybrid, and I'll talk a little bit about this as well in the next slides, is really, we've been pushing, I think, too much, I would say, over the past few years on SaaS, and kind of ignore the journey majority of our customers are in. And sometimes, when talking to customers, they're like, hey, look, I'll be in hybrid forever, right? Yes, I'll have cloud, I'll have on-prem, I'll have a mix, but I don't have a strategy to get everything off to SaaS in a year. That's not me, right? So I think we heard clear feedback, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing to support, hybrid and our customer journey. Last but not the least, we don't sit on an island, right? I think ecosystem is huge. And I'm not just talking about cloud providers and hybrid providers. I'm talking about device. You've seen some of the integrations we've done with the device vendors, and you've seen some of the integrations we're doing on identity and applications and cloud. So I think making sure we have a healthy and vibrant ecosystem, I think is really important. So, those are, big areas of investment for us, and hopefully that should translate into a better experience for both our customers as well as our partners. In terms of, the product strategy, as I said hybrid is a big part of that, right? And when I talk about hybrid, I'm not talking about just where you can put your workloads and resource location. I'm talking about hybrid management, right? Whether you're running it on-prem, you're running it in your own public cloud, right? Cloud provisioning, lift and shift, modernizing it, or using our SaaS services, or honestly, majority of our customers do all of them. And we want that experience to be simple and seamless, right? So that's a big change, right? That's a big change in our strategy, because over the past several years, we've been pushing only SaaS only, holding back a lot of innovation, for only customers who are pure SaaS. And so now you're changing that, right? A good example of innovating, bringing some of the functionality back to storefront, or Studio as a good example, bringing some of the new innovation like analytics, where customers want to manage their own data themselves. So you'll see a lot of those changes coming in the roadmap. But I think hybrid goes beyond management, identity, right? We have customers using NAT AD and Azure AD. We have customers who are using, Okta and Ping and Google ID and SAML. So we want to support that. I think hybrid, goes beyond management into identity, into workspaces, right? Yes, we are huge in, Windows applications and desktops, but we are also extending into SaaS and web applications like SPA, right? Secure private access, because our customers are like, look, I like the Citrix platform. You always provided me Windows apps and desktops, but I'm modernizing some of the applications, and I want to do a native browser-based access to that with the same security and control and great user experience that we've always relied on Citrix. So, how do we extend that and keep investing in other workspaces? Same with, Linux we've done, and Mac and others. So you can expect, hybrid going, beyond Windows as well. Same with device experience, right? Whether it's, Apple or Google ecosystem, or thin client or fit client, Mac, iOS, Android, continually innovating across, all the device platforms. Same with networking, right? Whether on-prem, multi-cloud, whether you're using a NetScaler on-prem or in your own cloud, or using our gateway service as an example, we see users coming in everywhere. I mean, look at ourselves, right? Some are working from the office, some are home, some are and you're probably using different connectivity to get to your applications and desktops, which might be on-prem and cloud, SaaS. And the key part is really, our goal is to simplify that hybrid experience, right? Because you could argue this hybrid could be complex, and our goal is, how do we simplify that experience when customers are using, hybrid across the board? And that's a big change in strategy, and I think I would say, aligned really with where our customers are today and where they're going in the future. Now, it's not just a product strategy. One of the other things you're doing as well to simplify that is also simplifying our licensing, right? So the first thing we're doing is starting with what we call the Citrix Universal License. So really giving you options to run the control plane, the management, whether in your own data centers, whether in your own instances of public cloud, or use our Citrix Cloud and SaaS services, right? And couple that with the flexibility of putting your applications on desktops anywhere, whether it's in public cloud like Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, or hybrid cloud providers like Nutanix, another great partner of ours, give that choice. And also simplify the hybrid rights for their environments, right? And before we were kind of, asking customers to TTU with hybrid rights, I think, which creates its own complexity and challenges when customers are in hybrid. Here, essentially universal license, one license, and no time limit on when or how you want to move to cloud or not, or how you want to mix it. I think you can use it. And plus couple that with the product and roadmap strategy, where you're getting innovation no matter how your hybrid is, right? So I think the two powerful combination of investing in roadmap, truly investing in roadmap that's hybrid, and simplifying the licensing as part of that, right? And we'll go through some of those things. I think, Shane and Scott probably will go through some of the details behind it, and happy to take more questions on some of the changes as well, and the thinking behind that. The last, I think, one slide I want to talk about innovation. Look, we're going to have a lot more webinars and others where we talk about it. We're investing heavily on user experience. HDX, for me, HDX is more than, high definition experience. I call it the hybrid digital experience, right? As I said, applications are everywhere, users are everywhere, devices are everywhere. So you need to really have experience that transcends what they have today and really go into hybrid. Same with we're doing with security. A lot of new capabilities, whether securing the application, securing the network, and a lot of capabilities we've recently released. And a huge part of what we've seen, app protection, great example, explosion of that use case, especially through the pandemic and when users are using a lot of unmanaged device and other devices as well. Insights and automation, not just analytics, but providing great APIs and SDKs, because a lot of our customers want to really automate their Citrix environments, whether it's using infrastructure as code toolings, whether they're operating their own environment or using our cloud. We want to make sure it's simple. I talked about secure private access. We're super excited about that. It definitely accelerated during the pandemic, using VPN-less type access for native browser-based applications. Again, we're building it into the platform. So it's not a new thing. And we're actually bringing some of those capabilities to customers who are using on-prem. So if you're using Storefront and NetScaler, you could just upgrade them, you get secure private access, right? As simple as that. And last but not the least, extending our integration with our broad ecosystem from a roadmap perspective. With that, I'll pass it back to Shane. That was kind of really a glimpse on, the transformation we've been. Look, we are really excited. I think the transformation is behind us, really excited where we are going, and really investing in product technology innovation, listening to customers and partners, and changing the course as we go along, based on the feedback we're getting from the field as well, right? So that's kind of part of our commitment.
Awesome. Yeah, Sridhar, thank you so much for taking the time to kind of go through kind of the vision and what you guys have been up to, obviously, since going private. And it's something I honestly didn't think I'd get so excited about a bunch of circles on the screen. But when you bring up that hybrid strategy, it really kind of brings apart and kind of changes what a lot of customers over the years have been upset about, right? And in my opinion, and why we're not a customer, we're an integrator, we're a consultant, we're an advisor. We're excited as CTPs, obviously. We spend a lot of time with product management. We have a lot of insights into the roadmap, much farther ahead than what's public. So we're just super excited about the product strategy and really just the heavy investment. Obviously, there's reduction on the sales side, the model shifting, which we'll talk about, right, and being more partner centric. But with that reduction on the sales side, it's really just a massive investment, like you had mentioned, on the product engineering side, which we're seeing already. The value that's happening there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of unpack, or we said we wouldn't say that. We're going to, I guess, rip the Band-Aid off, or just kind of really dig into what some of the, what are the changes that have been kind of trickling out there, right? There's changes that have been announced by, Calvin's done a great job announcing some of the vision at the Citrix user group community at the last webinars recorded about the vision, touched on a lot of the items that Sridhar had touched on today. There's been, an email out there you might have seen, happen to have Sridhar's name on it. I don't know, but that's also something we're going to talk about today. And also, there's been some articles out there. So we're really going to dig into each of those announcements and then kind of trickle in the value behind that. So yeah, Oz, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, I was just going to, really, we're going to try to just give it to you from our viewpoint. And since we've been involved with this from the beginning, but honestly, not everything is painless, right? So we threw some pictures up here because of pictures, worth 10,000 words really. But the one I kind of equate this to is like, there's a lot of changes happening at once that we're trying to sift through, a lot of confusion out there, but the Band-Aid, right? So I got a daughter who, if there's any blood at all for any owie, she goes crazy. And we've literally had times where we had that Band-Aid on her for weeks at a time. And my wife's a nurse and we can't pull the Band-Aid off and it just drags on forever. Some of this can be equated to that situation, an analogy with my daughter, where it's just, let's just get it over with and get it done quickly and then move on. And so we're trying to help, guide and what makes sense for you guys in your enterprise, in your space. So.
Yep. All right, so let's dive in. Kind of the first announcement that was kind of so this is us kind of slicing it up versus peeling back the onion. A little bit of a difference there, but yeah. So the first one was kind of it was a big announcement for larger customers, and we're going to talk through that here. It was basically 1,000. If you're 1,000+ licensed customer, essentially is the end of renewal, right? And that was the one that was an email went out and obviously talked about a date being a shorter date around perpetual software maintenance specifically. It was an email went on 2/15, and how it impacts customers. Essentially, you have kind of a one last phone a friend there to continue to renew that, and after that, there's no more path to renew the perpetual license. Essentially, it's transitioning to the universal license, which we're going to really spend some time talking about here in a few minutes. If you are 99 and below, essentially 1,000 and below there, then it allows, you can still renew perpetual software maintenance. And we will dig into that question as well. What's the why behind that as part of our Q&A with Sridhar. So we do have a lot of questions that we put together. We have a lot of questions that were submitted through the audience, and feel free to submit as well live as we kind of unpack this here. And the reason why March 3rd is there is it's really just about, there's time to process that. I think March 8th specifically is the end date, because that's essentially the announcement of the new licensing SKUs, right? The new availability of the universal license that Sridhar spent some time talking about. And really the value there is just not having to worry about where you're running your workloads. Maybe today you're 100%, on-prem, you have no vision or sight for being public cloud-based, right? And we're going to talk about public cloud provisioning and what's all entailed there. But also, there's a lot of times, we have what we're doing today, but there's, we're in a fast-paced changing world, right? I mean, things are changing constantly around us, and there might be a use case where you need to use the DAS service. Maybe you don't want to use that today, but you can potentially use the DAS service for some other use cases, which we'll talk about here shortly. The universal SKU essentially just enables you to do that and not have to go and contact Citrix and do another, upgrade down the road. So it just kind of gives you that entitlement, and you can still continue to do things as you're doing them today. We'll talk about a little bit about TTU versus net new purchase. Essentially, transition and trade up is you're taking your licenses, you're essentially giving them back to Citrix and trading them in trading them in and transitioning to, in this case, universal license, versus buying net new, which essentially is starting over and would be a higher cost. So transition definitely is going to be more cost effective for you. The big thing here, and why we're talking about, CSA, a solution advisor, or a CSP, a service provider, and obviously we're both. Some partners out there aren't both, but basically it's important to understand the difference, because these license quantity changes that Oz is about to talk about is going to basically impact you and potentially some customers out there, right? So solution advisor is really, we've been that for years, right? It's all about, consultant, advisory, implementation services, can do some operational support, but we sell those licenses, they're yearly terms. Service provider is essentially, it's teamed more with what you'd see with what the Microsoft service provider is, the SPLA model, right? You're paying on a consumption basis. You're paying for what you use on a monthly basis, and it's typically tiered with, some sort of service or support with that. One of the things with the service provider model is, the customer, the partner that you go with, if it's Choice or another partner, essentially, obviously we hope it's you, but might be going with another partner or whatnot. But we're here to educate on this, and it's really about, we would have to essentially be that frontline support and open that case for you, right? And that's one thing that's a difference. So we're going to talk through some of that deeper as well. But that's kind of the difference between the two. And we'll let Oz, if you want to dive into kind of the quantities behind that and why we brought up the two different models.
Yeah, so the two models are going to become even more important, are going to be talked about a lot, just because there's different buckets, which we'll talk to on the next slide. But essentially, where you fall as a customer on the licensing side, CSA is really going to be heavily focused, obviously, on the 250 plus number as far as user device, and then the CSP side of the house is really, if you fall below that sub 250 user device, CSP is just user device only. So the conversation is also for a customer that's concurrent licensing. I think it's 100. But just know on the CSP side, user device licensing is all we have available on that side. So these buckets essentially that you're going to fall into is important for the conversation for CSA versus CSP and why we're going over that. One of the other random changes I just wanted to mention here is this CTX article. This was the license server telemetry requirement, right? That came up I think last week or the week before. This is for CVAT on-prem only customers and really needing to report back telemetry data on license usage. So all of these changes, are happening. This is one that's for quite some time now hasn't been the case. Well, now on the support side of things, we're going to need that telemetry data uploaded either automatically or manually, right? So you can have it, you can be not necessarily exempted, but you can have a manual approach to that if you're dark site or one of these sites that has no internet access or whatever. So
Yeah, I think it's important to mention on that one too, is like, I think some of the sentiment out there on that was like, oh, Big Brother trying to understand license entitlements. And, we've been operating this way for a long time, but it's also about, obviously being on the DAS service, there's a lot of telemetry data, and Sridhar, obviously you can comment as well if there's some other pieces there, but there's a lot of telemetry data that you get, right? And it's really about, anonymously, what features of the product are they using to help drive roadmap going forward? And when you look at the CVAD, traditionally without having that telemetry enablement on the license server, there was not as much insights there as to how the product's being used on-prem. And now with all the new enhancements saying, hey, we're bringing a lot back to the on-prem product, this is essentially going to give more insights into how those features and functionalities are being used. That's really the main reason behind that, right, Sridhar?
Yeah, so maybe Shane, do you want me to take a few minutes and kind of unpack a few things on this slide? I know some of these are going to be Q&A as well.
Please.
I think, look, I think as you guys probably remember, back in 2019, we stopped selling, perpetual licenses and kind of moved into a SaaS or an on-prem churn model. Like, look, I think it basically, just like many companies, we're moving into a subscription model, right? It started back in 2019 and it's going there. And even some of the changes we're making on basically moving, renewals into subscription, same with NetScaler that we've never done before. We had pool licensing, but we never, we're still doing the perpetual, is really moved towards, subscription kind of based licensing from a broader perspective. And again, we started like, regarding the license limit, you'll see, I think when we initially proposed 1,000, we got a lot of feedback from partners. We listened and we basically said, hey guys, I think the minimum should be probably 250 user device or 100. And the reason for that is, why a minimum? Because the minimum actually we believe, like, look, if you're a small customer with 50 licenses, 100, longer term to have the best customer experience probably is through a CSP, and that's one of the reasons why we kind of had that limitations. Now, if you're 1,000 and below, you can still do renewals and other stuff. It's just 1,000 and above, you get to a universal model, and that was kind of the reasoning behind it. And the license server telemetry, while it's starting us to kind of really understand usage, we also actually want to take a lot of those things and give it back to customers, right? For example, we have a great tool called License User Insight. Today, it's available for all our service providers, but it's not available for customers who are using on-prem and cloud SaaS. So we want to use this to not just collect telemetry, but give it back to customers so they can actually understand their own usage across all the different environments, hybrid, and other stuff. So there's a longer reason behind why we're doing. Obviously, it helps us to understand, what customers are using, feature functionality, but also we want to provide that information back to the customer. So hopefully, understand the subscription change, understand that we brought the, minimum number as well, lower to accommodate customers. We're 1,000, I think, I do agree, feels high. So we are making that changes, and, slowly you'll see these come out over the coming weeks through partners and customers as well.
Yeah, thanks, Sridhar. Yeah, so and then the last one here is really, again, there's a lot of things happening at once with the NetScaler changes. That's as of a couple of weeks ago as well. And, this one is a little more straightforward. Some of the smaller VPXs, right? We don't really do a lot with those, but the VPX 1025s end of sale. The bigger one that's been mentioned out there in the community, obviously, is the standard is going away. So it's really going to be, advanced or above for the options. But if you're using GSLB or some of those features, a lot of the features you're already going to be doing something with advanced and above on the NetScaler front. So that was pretty much the big one. I mean, there's some other things about cold spares and DLX and whatnot, but the big ones are really just the small VPXs and the standard going away, as far as that goes. Again, just like what Sridhar was saying, and it should be a surprise to nobody that subscription is the way forward. I mean, I probably have 47 things and apps in my house right now where I'm subscription. I mean, everybody knows what that means for a company. So, the perpetual only renewal is going to be, available till March 8th in all form factors. Basically the existing quotes will be expiring a few days prior to that. So, that's on the NetScaler side of the house. We won't really focus too much more on that going, in our next slides. But, going past that, we're gonna kind of show a couple scenarios on this slide here. We only have really 2 more slides left to talk through some flows before we're going to open it up to the questions that Shane mentioned. The big thing I just want to mention is like entitlement levels. What happens to those aren't changing, right? So there's quite a few decks that'll show like universal change at the top, which I have a slide just to show you that. But just know that the entitlement levels, we had a webinar on that last year on the changes there with Carissa when that happened. But those aren't changing with this universal situation and what's going on here with the universal SKU. Again, I mentioned that some options for you trading up net new are going to differ based on the buckets, and that's what we're going to talk through here. Really that refocus on hybrid. So Sridhar mentioned it and showed it, right? Hybrid across the board where Citrix is absolutely king there. The universal SKU really is focused on that hybrid management, right? That piece where you need CVAD, you need the DAS control plane together. Just know, if you haven't heard of it, the automated configuration tool, we use it all the time. That tool allows us to go at our own pace, right, to DAS. So if you are in the universal SKU, that tool enables us to do what we need to do and slowly migrate or get up to DAS at that point. And then OPT, you'll hear that acronym thrown out there a lot. That's on-prem term. So this is a big one. So the CVAD on-prem term is changing here because, like we mentioned, development back on-prem, really wanting to give customers that capability that DAS typically has had. So that's going to be that increased feature parity in the engineering efforts that Shane had mentioned. So if you're going to stay in on-prem term CVAD, you're going to get all that, the goodies, right, from the DAS side of the house. And a big one there is just the public cloud provisioning, which used to be saved for, obviously you needed to buy those hybrid rights and those kind of things, and or be DAS. Well, now you with the CVAD on-prem term, you're going to get the public cloud provisioning. And that also obviously gives you the IT managed CVAD for what we call lift and shift. So if you want to take your CVAD to Azure, AWS, whatever, that's kind of the lift and shift of CVAD out there. So it's going to give you that capability to do that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, like I said, the cloud provisioning is definitely a huge one. That's one that typically required, if you remember back prior to the LTSR, right? It was basically to continue going forward required hybrid rights. So that's definitely a big announcement, something that's definitely coming. So excited to see that. So what we want to do is just kind of give a little bit of a visual, because there's a ton of questions coming in. We're answering some of them as we go, but we're going to bring some of those to the light. Obviously, if we answer them, you're not the other folks on the webinar and benefiting. So we're going to make sure to call some of those out. We want to make this as educational as possible and really make it super clear. So basically, some of the existing scenarios, right? So there's customers out there that have CVAD. They essentially acquired DAS licensing, and the product names have changed over time, right? It was someone had asked a question about Workspace Suite, right? And hey, I bought this Workspace Suite, included everything back in the day. How did that transition, right? And that essentially included everything that was DAS and Premium Plus and those sorts of things, right? So in this case, if you're CVAD, we're just calling it CVAD, which is kind of IT managed, the traditional on-prem product, and then DAS, which is the cloud product. Whether it was Workspace or it was virtual apps and desktop service, DAS kind of encompasses that, right, as the cloud managed version, right, or the platform as a service offering, right? So customers that went and bought DAS, essentially, they included what was called hybrid rights. By default, you might not have known that. I think now most folks know that, but just in case, like when you bought that, it included with your term the ability to run still on premises your CVAD version to give you time to kind of get over to the cloud, right? Or to the DAS service, right? And just to be clear, Citrix did not host their workloads. I know some folks over time have thought, well, Citrix has taken over. It's just a management plane there. So what's going on there is that's essentially transitioning, right? So after that term, what had happened was it was like, okay, I'm still in move, right? Because as we know, IT is constantly changing, different projects, different initiatives. Essentially, sometimes you don't get done in that by the time that term's done, and now you had to go and buy this expensive hybrid rights, right? So essentially, that's going away, and it's transitioning to this universal license, which gives you the ability to do both and continue at your pace. There's no end of term. The end of term essentially is when that subscription ends, right? You just renew that. So that's why that's in red there. So that would be kind of the scenario where someone's using DAS, they have CVAD, potentially in a hybrid scenario. There's customers that are just DAS only, right? They bought DAS, the virtual apps and desktop service, DAS, and they have workloads that could be hybrid, could be on-prem, could be in a public cloud. doesn't matter, multiple data centers, but they don't have the on-prem CVAD product. Their CVAD term subscription, as you mentioned, I think it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, term, you couldn't buy perpetual anymore, right? So the writing has been on the wall for some time. It's all about term-based subscription. So that's CVAD, IT managed on-prem, but just in the subscription model. Customers have that model out there as well. And there's customers that are still on perpetual. Technically they own that license, right? And basically that's where some of the announcements that we had talked about, right? If you're over 1,000, you're going to transition or TTU to a universal, which gives you this kind of future state if you need to be there. And also the ability, like I said, to shift and move at any time or continue to do business as usual. Or, if you're less than 1,000, you could potentially renew there if you don't have any public cloud initiatives or you're not looking to move to the DaaS service for any immediate needs. But again, so for the time being, that would be the path for less than 1,000. We'll talk to Sridhar more about that in the open Q&A. And then there was basically customers that had purchased hybrid rights because their term had ended. And again, that's being transitioned. If you do have existing agreements and entitlements, essentially outside of perpetual, you can still continue to buy and add to what you own today. And that's what we wanted to kind of show that. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's talk through a little bit of the
net new real quick, a little simpler on this side of the house, right? So I've got some, some tags up here, but really, CVAD plus DaaS, that's universal now, or you can do DaaS only. You don't need that universal. That's really the 250 plus. Sub 250, as I mentioned before, that's the CSP route for both of those buckets. And then really the on-prem CVAD term is available to everybody, right? So again, feature parity, all that goodness, cloud provision, the CVAD, the on-prem term license, OPT is, sub 250, 250 on up, right? So you can do whatever you want to do there, renewing and adding those licenses. And that's really just a net new customer. If you're a new prospect, new customer looking to come on with Citrix or a new tenant, right? So a little simpler on that side of the house for us.
Bucket do you fall into? We'll talk through this here, and then we'll get right into the Q&A. There's a ton of questions, so we want to make time to answer each of those that come in and some of the different scenarios that are coming. So the bucket essentially, if you're IT managed CVAD only, we had mentioned this to kind of provide a visual and summarize that, right? If you're in a perpetual customer, you're over 1,000 users, essentially you have the option to renew one more time prior to March 3rd. If you do not renew, at that point, there's a transition and trade up option to move to the universal license. And that's why we kind of have, the fork in the road, or it's not necessarily a dead end, right? It's because you could run, CVAD perpetual without support, but obviously that wouldn't be recommended. It would be more so to transition to that universal license. And what that means at that point is you can still continue to operate as normal. You're just on that subscription model. You don't have to move to the DaaS service. I know there were questions there that came in. Does this mean I have to move to the DaaS service? No, you can continue to operate with your on-prem product the same way you are. You're still managing, monitoring, and maintaining that environment, but you have the option to move to that DaaS service, which is kind of what the universal is all about. Not have to worry about, upgrading or hybrid or anything like that anymore. Essentially, it gives you the ability to be across both. If you're less than 1,000, it's CVAD term, and that's essentially IT managed. And the big one is CVAD term now includes cloud provisioning, right? Or is going to include cloud provisioning, which is a big one that required hybrid rights before. Second one here is about IT managed CVAD with a DaaS control plane. Essentially, that's basically if, you're in the scenario that we had talked about, you're currently running the DaaS service, you have CVAD, you're hybrid, that would be a universal license. A good example would be, maybe you have a dark site, maybe there's some governance reasons, maybe you have a small office, or you have a larger office maybe in China. Well, typically that's not really designed. The best solution for that is to do CVAD on-prem, right? But maybe everything else works great for the DaaS service. So that would be a good scenario where, hybrid makes sense, right? Or maybe you're 100% on-prem. You don't want anything to do with the DaaS service, but we're seeing a lot of customers come up with use cases around, contractors, call centers. They're doing SaaS apps, or they're unified communications. All that can be done in public cloud and run really well. So maybe it makes sense to do the DaaS service for some of those use cases, but everything else on-prem, right? And have this unified management experience. So that's what that's all about. We had talked about here just around session recording and web entitlements, being available, for those CVAD-based customers as part of that universal entitlement, which is a huge value add there, which again would have required an upgrade if you weren't already CVAD premium. I'll let you cover the last one there on CVAD.
And again, the simpler one. I let you take all the complicated ones. So it makes
I see.
Simpler one. DaaS is not going anywhere, right? So DaaS only. right? You don't need the universal stuff. You don't need the old hybrid rights capability that's now universal. DAS only is still a thing, right? So you can continue to renew, you can continue to do DAS only. There are those minimum quantities we talked about that apply the 250, 100 CCU situation. This would be, obviously, you don't care about CVAD, don't need any CVAD presence anywhere for any kind of on-prem IT managed portion of this. And again, anything DAS, as you know, from the entitlements, not changing. Advanced Plus that supports the on-prem multi-cloud provisioning across the board there. And then there are don't forget about the hyperscaler options. We do a lot in Azure, so there's a standard, like for example, the DAS standard for Azure. There's Google offering as well, but just know that those are available. So that is not changing. And I'm gonna let Dana and Brian talk to a few things on the sales side here for some thoughts that they had as we transition to this next slide. So then we'll get into some questions.
Yeah, so just another update to kind of share with you. At the early part of January, Citrix kind of made a official change and transition and began executing on a new approach to serving customers. So just a real quick to communicate, and again, there's a lot of questions in here. Some of them we're not able to answer, but we are taking them down. I also want to stress we'll have a post-event survey. If you could please fill that information out. Everything in there we will share and use to on your behalf, just questions or additional information you'd like and follow through on. So if you're in the U.S. enterprise, you'll continue to be serviced by a named account team with Citrix. So kind of a business as usual, but with the transitions that Citrix made at the beginning part of the year, there's kind of a new go-to-market approach that impacts like the commercial enterprise, commercial SMB. For some, it may not be much of an impact at all because you're already working heavily. You have a trusted advisor on the Citrix side that you work heavily through. Sure, you might have worked through resources from Citrix in conjunction. But Citrix is moving kind of a new approach in this sector, and the focus will be on a partner-led type of approach with the support of Citrix resources. So example will be, there's a prior you might have had like a named account team or account team that worked with you in your commercial enterprise or in the SMB space. Moving forward, the Citrix focus would be, hey, work through those trusted Citrix partners that you depend upon and work and have great relationships with and trust. And then we'll provide the resources to choice to kind of support them. So we have access to a kind of a dedicated team from Citrix that's there to support us as a partner. And then in turn, when we might be working on something with your organization, or again, if you're working with another partner organization, that they might be able to leverage the team that's supporting them as a partner. So it's a new approach. It's a different approach in serving customers. I do, just more than ever, it's the choice, of who you're working through and who your trusted Citrix partner is going to be more important than it's ever been for you to make sure, value and knowledge and expertise and guidance and access to resources and things like that. And I'm just being really transparent and honest. I mean, it's putting a lot of, it'll require our team to up our game and up our value to make sure that we're assisting you as customers and taking care of you. So again, I just want to, what we want to offer is post this webinar again in the survey. If there's a one-on-one follow-up conversation around your environment, just check on that and we'll be happy to set that up. There's been a lot of change, and like with this event, we're very grateful for Sridhar joining us, but getting communication and getting what we know to date, and being able to kind of help provide that and communicate that with you guys. But just know we're super committed. We don't, if you see some of the answers, don't have all the answers for you, but we're super committed to going and finding those answers and making sure you guys as customers and those that have invested in Citrix, getting answers for you timely and helping you understand fully any, your environment, who's your primary contact or team to serve you guys, and helping make connections there. Or if it's working the opportunity to work through us or another trusted IT partner, just guiding and clarifying that. So that's a little bit just on the maybe from a sales leadership from myself and from Brian. The two of us co-lead up our sales organization. Just a little bit kind of new approach from Citrix going into 2023.
And Dana, just to tag in there, I mean, we've seen some questions on, there's going to be a lot more detail that comes available after March 8th. But one thing as a trusted advisor, we always want to do the best we can to take the information that we have and make sure that we're bringing it to market and helping you understand it, so you can make the best decision. So if we waited to host this till after March 8th, there have been some decisions that some people could have had access to on maybe some perpetual license maintenance renewals. And so, like I said, we're trying to get answers to, and so we're doing the best we can. And like I said, some of this is above our pay grade, some of this above Sridhar's pay grade, but some of these decisions. And so we're just trying to do the best, working as a group. And Sridhar has been a huge asset to us in trying to help unpack this and how this will affect our customers. And so thank you guys for submitting those questions. And like, if we don't get those answered immediately, I assure you, we will be back in touch to get that question answered.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, there's a ton of questions coming in, and we've tried to answer, quite a few as we go. But real quick, before we just jump into some of the open air, Q&A, talking of those advisory services and really trying to help you, figure the way forward for what's best for you guys. We have other ones on our site. Just know, we have UC services, the newest one, the Citrix Plus NVIDIA one. These are our jumpstart, some of our other advisory services. New content, we're adding it regularly. My boy Shane over here just did a Citrix blog. Man, this thing's long. It's really good, in-depth blog that just made it onto the site the other day. Props to you, Shane, on that one, in conjunction with the Citrix team and getting that out there. So
yeah, thank you. It's just a great ecosystem integration story, kind of what Sridhar was talking about, just about session recording and automated pause and resume using one of our RPA partners. So yeah, you guys check that out if you want. But yeah, let's rock and roll into the Q&A. So we got probably over 30 questions, submitted. Plus we had some of our questions of our own. So we're gonna go ahead and kind of open it up. So I guess we'll talk through kind of the first one. I think there's been a number of questions about kind of the workspace suite transition. It's something that, again, as you mentioned, as we mentioned to you, Sridhar, obviously we're candid about our feedback, other partners as well. Some of that information is kind of trickling out. So you obviously being on the call, I mean, what is the transition path for those customers that are workspace suite? They had the kit and caboodle. What's their path? Do they have a transition to universal going forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. So first of all, customers who are entitled to the products, whether it's CVAD or endpoint management, none of that is changing. I think the universal license is basically giving them option to run both on-prem and cloud anywhere they want, right? So we're going to transition those customers as well to make sure they have all the offerings they already have as part of the workspace bundle, whether it's a workspace service bundle or the suite bundle they have. Look, longer term, I'm not going to talk too much about it. We do want to get to a platform license for everything we do. Probably next year. Like step one was get to universal, simplify the model. Step two is kind of a platform license. So that's one. But again, for customers who are using workspace services and suite, they can continue to use all those capabilities, and plus they'll get universal as an added benefit for the offerings within the workspace bundle itself. So that's one. Second, I've seen some questions about hypervisor and capabilities. So that's not changing. So if you're using CVAD and Zen Server as part of that, that's all great. In fact, we're actually doubling Zen Server team, right? One, because a lot of our customers use it for CVAD, and as well as it's used heavily for NetScaler. Plus there's opportunity within those customers to grow beyond. I think we definitely want to capitalize on that. So no changes there if you're using Zen Server. We're actually investing a lot more in that use case as well.
Yeah, thanks, Sridhar. And some of the questions you guys submitted, prior to this the webinar, a lot of questions on pricing. We can't talk to those right now. There's a lot of specifics on that after March 8th. But one of another question here, Sridhar, really is on any more changes coming for the near future of sneak peeks or anything that hasn't been announced already. I thought that was a good one as well. You know, like in addition to this universal license announcement, you know, is there any other things you're looking to bring to the table for customers and bring greater value there? Anything that you may or may not be able to talk to some of those things, but if there's any sneak previews.
Yeah, look, I think, you know, this is really the culmination of something we started in 2019, moving to a full kind of a subscription model. So I would say this is kind of the last phase getting through that. I mean, we're doing that basically by, you know, we stopped selling perpetual, you know, that was a while back, but we were still renewing those licenses. Now we are kind of just converting them to subscription and universal. So I think, you know, really this is like the big change. We're doing the same thing on the NetScaler as well. So I mean, just operationalizing this itself and adjusting to the feedback we're going to get from customer partners, I think is a big thing. You know, next year we further want to simplify, maybe at least for large customers where they want to kind of have a platform approach, all you can eat and all other stuff. So, you know, that might be something we'll look at it, but that's more for large customers, you know, looking at large deployments of everything, right? Not just events. So.
There's your little sneak preview, Phil. The platform approach. Keep that in your back of your mind, right?
Yeah, look, I think I know, like when we are kind of making these changes, sometimes you miss the forest from the trees, and I understand the challenges in moving from one license bundle to another, and moving from I'm just renewing my maintenance to a subscription. Look, the real model we're doing it is like, hey, can we focus really on post-sales adoption with the customers, right? Which is really make it simple for customers to move to our platform so they can use as much as they can and really focus our resources on driving adoption, right? At the end of the day, if customers use our products, are happy, and they're expanding, then it's great for them, hopefully, and it's great for us as well in the longer term, right? So that's really the model shift that's happening.
Right. Yeah, as you guys have gone private, and these changes being made, like the decoupling, and you mentioned it, you know, Zen Server, you just got done talking about, you know, ShareFile, NetScaler is their own separate business units, and really, how does that benefit, or what does that mean to the customer?
Yeah,
you know,
really good thing. I think by the way, going back to business units is not kind of code new for Citrix, right? If you look at circa until 2015-16, we were part of business units. In fact, I was part of the Workspace business unit. I used to call it. We had NetScaler business unit. We had ShareFile. We had Citrix GoToMeeting Online, which was different at that time. We don't have it anymore. So it's kind of back to there just so we can drive accountability as well as investments, right? So now it's really clear, and that's really what the shift is. Now, from a customer perspective, as I said, we're investing in all the core business units when it comes to product and technology and support. Now, obviously, there's a lot of go-to-market changes. In fact, we're relying heavily on partners, right? I think, as Dana said, for a lot of commercial accounts and customers, we're going to rely a lot on partners, you know, work with partners to best support. In fact, this is kind of going, I mean, again, this is for me back to basics. You know, Citrix kind of started as a channel company. And so in some ways, you know, that's kind of going back to basics as well in that sense. So the BU structure is really focusing on making sure we're investing in all the product lines that our customers care about, is in, you know, and having that discussion or having that kind of philosophy. That was one. I think there's some questions on ShareFile as well. Like, no, ShareFile has kind of two sides. There's existing customers using, but there's also, we sell a lot of ShareFile into SMB. You know, a lot of customers don't realize that, you know, heavily done as well. And so we want to make sure we're investing heavily in the go-to-market of that as well. So that was another reason for that. And over time, we've seen customers use more and more, you know, other file sharing solutions within VDI, like, you know, OneDrive, Box, and others. So we're integrating with all of those as well. But customers are using today ShareFile, you know, should continue to be using it. You know, again, that's another huge area of investments that's going across. And yes, the integration's kind of changing a little bit, you know, but the investment in ShareFile is also pretty heavy.
Nice. Yeah. So Sridhar, I don't know if you can stick with us for 5 more minutes to answer some of the stuff coming in. I appreciate it. You know, anybody that needs a drop off, of course, can, but
yeah, we are recording this as well, and we're going to do a summary post on the Q&A as well for those folks out there, because this is just super important.
I know Shane's got one real quick. He's going to ask here in a second, but also, you know, all these changes, any impact to support? you have anything there, Sridhar, from the support standpoint, you know, on what's happening, changes there? I know a lot of customers have felt the pain of the support of the last couple of years, and anything you could maybe speak to there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll reiterate what I said at the start, right? Support is a big investment for us that we're increasing, right? Because at the end of the day, like, look, when I go walk into a customer meeting, if the customer is not happy with the support, guess what? That's the only thing they're going to talk about. They won't talk about features. They don't care, right? So for us, having a great support is a core obligation. So what we're doing is two things. As I said, we're increasing the number of resources we're putting in frontline. I think sometimes it might take, you know, a few months to kind of see that impact, you know, daily as you're seeing. And second, as I said, we've also taken all the escalation engineering and put them close to engineering, because at the end of the day, when an escalation comes up, you want to be able to resolve that within a day, not sit on it for a few days and then pass it to engineering for another week and then they debug it. It's like, no, like, you know, you have to have a better experience. So support is one of the, you know, heavily invested areas for us, right? And again, it's something we're going to constantly measure ourselves through our own metrics. But again, when I talk to customers and partners, I think it becomes very obvious when we're doing a good job and we're not doing a good job, and we're going to fix it and change. So I'm actually really excited. You know, support, I always feels like, is the first obligation, right? We provide an enterprise class solution, and with that needs to come best of great support. And it doesn't matter what size customer you are, we want to provide the best support for them.
It's really good to hear from you.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one question I've seen asked a couple times here in Sridhar is really, you know, for those customers that are going from, you know, that they're currently perpetual today, or they're on, you know, currently CVAD perpetual, they have to transition to universal licensing. Maybe they don't have the reason or the option today, or they don't have the business reason, right? The case to move to DaaS, and in their mind, they're like, well, I'm paying for this license that I'm not using. So is there a plan? And we talked to the value and why that makes sense, but also, you know, for their purposes, right? Is there going to be a transition, or why isn't there a transition to go from CVAD perpetual to CVAD term?
You're talking for that big customer bucket, right, Shane?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. 1,000 licenses and plus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where you're going to universal. Like, look, I think, you know, we're going to be competitive in, you know, I think there are some questions, hey, what's the price increase and others.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, look, the goal is we're going to be competitive in that, because, you know, we have an incentive to kind of move our customers to universal. Now, remember, universal kind of gives you an ability to kind of mix and match, right? It's not like you have to move everything to DaaS, which is what we used to say before, and give you a time limit, like 1, 2, 3 years when you have to move. So now we're bringing capabilities back to your on-prem. We're bringing capabilities to a cloud managed subscription you have. And you know what? You could actually use some services from our cloud, maybe not the whole broker, the site, everything else in combination. So we're going to build a roadmap where you get value no matter how it is. So I think the universal is not just, hey, I'm not going to DaaS, and so I'm not going to get any value. That's not the case, right? So the case is we're bringing all the value no matter where it is. So you will see every quarter as we are releasing new products, CR, LTSR Cloud, you'll see that innovation coming across. So you won't feel like you're missing out on capabilities when you're not using, you know, Citrix DaaS.
Yeah, I think just like a couple questions came in. Like the biggest thing is just this unknown is like, what is that cost uplift? Obviously, we don't have access to that, and we're going to very soon. But maybe you can help shed some light. And I know you'd mentioned, you know, it's not that there's no plans to obviously break the bank there, right? You want to make it as smooth as possible to transition. But, you know, there's someone had obviously concerns just with, you know, high inflation economy, and traditionally the uptick in the service is why they stayed perpetual through the years, right? And so I think that's just something to obviously keep in mind. I'm sure you guys are thinking about that, but I guess anything you can share there. But
yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, it's hard because it's customer specific and
exactly.
Cases, but I think, you know, you'll probably have a range somewhere between, you know, 12%, something like that, if I have to take a guess on an average. Now, some of that is like, I mean, let's be honest, you know, inflation is running at 8-10% for all of us as well. And I think our goal is to be aggressive to get to a universal model, just because we believe it'll provide the best customer support experience, best product experience. you know, and at the end of the day, we want customers to be happy and grow with us, because when that happens, I think, you know, it's good for customers, good for us as well. So.
Yep, I think that.
I didn't know if you had any others to touch on. I did have one other that I wanted to ask, and you touched on a little bit, Sridhar, with the app protection. You mentioned app protection. Call that
That's
out.
a good one. Yeah.
Some of these add-on services, you know, AVD includes a piece of that, right, with the Microsoft offering. You know, you also talked a little bit about the sneak preview with the platform mentioned. Is that part of that thought process, like with app protection being given to customers and not being you know, an add-on a la carte kind of thing? If there's anything.
So yeah, we're definitely moving away from selling add-ons and a la carte stuff. I think what we want to do is, you know, really provide an all-inclusive offering that customers can use. And the goal is like, look, it's very simple. If you use it, you get value, you'll pay for us in the future. If you don't use it, I think you don't get value, you don't pay for us, right? So, you know, I think in the past, as you've seen, we were trying to sell analytics as an add-on and this, and like a lot of that is stopping and putting that as part of our core offerings. So that's the strategy, Oz. You know, how do we make it really simple for customers to really use it? And then once they use it, they adopt it, you know, and then they'll be willing to pay for it. I think what customers don't like is we sell them this add-ons and new offerings, and then they don't use it or they don't get value out of it, and now they're looking at and renewals and others for that, right? In this model, it's more like, hey, let's give it to customers, new capabilities, new things, let them use it, you know, adopt it, and I think that's then, you know, takes the risk out of them, right? So you're not investing in anything that you don't know if it's going to work out or not.
Yeah, thanks, Sridhar. Shane, do you got any hot ones that you wanted to hit Sridhar with here before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think there was one that came in just around, you know, obviously there's a lot of concern around timing, you know, and some of the larger customers that are 1,000 plus, you know, do they renew now or do they wait a week to see what the pricing is going to be? So there's some concerns around timing there that we could address here. But the other thing I think was just, I think it's more of a product function thing. I think license wise, the goal is to like you said, you know, CVAD, you know, on-prem term is going to enable cloud provisioning, but past version 2012, they took out the ability to enable cloud provisioning out of the box, right? So that's more of a product thing. That's going to be, I'm assuming, same thing with like session recording, technically out of the box, right? It needs to be adjusted to support the universal license. Will you see similar product enhancements to solve for both those, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so there's some engineering work for us to address that. That's already in the works. There's some on the back office systems as well that we have to do. That's going to roll out, you know, on the back office system over the coming months. But there's some engineering work for us to address that. And again, you know, this is a revised strategy for us, hybrid, right? And so we're making all those changes, Shane.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's, I'm just looking through real quick. I think I know we're over, so I want to obviously be respectful of everyone's time. I'm just looking real quick. Most of these we can get to. I don't believe there's anything else specifically here. We talked about the workspace transition. Yeah, I think we're pretty good on the questions, Oz. I don't know if you had anything specific.
Good, man. We could probably sit here all day with Sridhar, to be honest. And we're going to have a follow-up.
And just one plug, I think early March, first week also, we have, you know, a launch of the universal from a product marketing and product roadmap perspective. I think a lot of these things are going to come out as well in terms of what's the value I'm getting. So the whole marketing team is getting geared up to kind of, you know, launch that, because this is a huge change. And you're right. I mean, you know, we're kind of trying to move fast as well, and trying to get more information out there through, you know, I mean, we don't have a synergy event right now. You know, we're trying to formulate our own events as we go across. We're using partner events. We're using, you know, we'll have our own events focused on customers as well. But we're also using, you know, webinars and blogs and launches through citrix.com as well to get more and more information out.
Yeah, no, I think that greatly kind of sums it up. Like, you know, there's a lot of changes. It's fast and furious, but at the same time, you know, there's a lot of value being added. And I think, like you said, over the next week, that information will trickle out. Also, we're looking, we put a survey out, you know, please answer if you think if it makes sense, if there's value. We're thinking of doing kind of a, an office hour type situation, maybe once a week, just pop on once every 2 weeks. Just essentially, if there's any questions, you can hop on at a scheduled time, and we just want to be available and help address. There's a ton of questions, ton of different scenarios. We have access to a lot of information. Obviously, great partnership with Sridhar and an entire team under Sridhar that we have access to, and we want to do the best possible to provide that information. And I think Sridhar, you guys are probably looking to, like I said, not only get marketing materials, but maybe FAQs and things like that to help address those questions down the road as well. Probably will be provided.
Yes. I mean, some of that is already in the works, Shane. In fact, I want to take the Q&A we got as well, because I think this will broadly apply to a lot of customers and partners as well, and we'll kind of incorporate that into, we have our own enablement that's getting spun up, and both for partners and customers. So we'll make sure I get all these questions and create answers and FAQs as well. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Yeah, I guess so. Closing out, I guess Dana or Brian, Oz, Sridhar, any last words there? I guess last word sounds horrible. It's like we're all going to get executed after this. We're speaking past the terms of service. We're done.
I'm just trying to answer questions furiously.
Yeah. Hey, Sridhar, thank you so much for coming on and sharing what you can share. Obviously, to the customers on, like I said, we've got the ones that you submitted. If there's additional ones, we'll be back in touch to assist in any way, shape, or form we can as that advisor, just trying to help you navigate, whether it's through office hours, through our team members. But once again, like Dana said, we know that there's going to be a lot more that as a partner we're going to be carrying. We got a phenomenal group of resources, and we'll always aspire to do the best we can to serve you and your business. So we thank you for the trust and the opportunity. And Sridhar, Shane, and Oz, thank you guys for putting together the material today. And so with that, like I said, I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you guys for your partnership, and we'll be back in touch.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.